The Basic Education Department has proposed several changes to improve the quality of the work done by the sector. The first major change is for the early childhood development phase. A recommendation has been made that all children attend at least 2 years of ECD education compulsory before going into grade 1. There are also proposals for the introduction of a general education certificate at the completion of grade 9. Let's talk about this then with education specialist Mary Metcalfe. Always good to speak to you, Ms. Metcalfe. Let's talk first about the changes more broadly. Are they the best thing to do for the children of this country at the moment? Let's try again to see if Professor Mary Metcalfe is able to hear me. If you can hear me, Prof. Tembekile in Johannesburg here, I was just asking if these proposed changes are the best thing to do for the education given to the children of South Africa at this point.
Thank you, Tembekile. We lost sound for a little bit, but I'm assuming that you're asking about the ECD, or is it to do with the
more
FET?
Broadly first, and then we'll go through it bit by bit.
Okay. All right, good. So the report that your research team picked up was the annual performance plan presentation of the DBE to Parliament, which is one of the ways in which the DBE is able to account to the public on their plans. So the report of the DBE was comprehensive. There are particular initiatives that the public is very focused on at the moment. One is the question of early childhood development, because that's so fundamental to learning, to social participation, to life and development. There's also a lot of emphasis on improving the National Senior Certificate results, which builds on 12 years of education. So a range of initiatives to improve the quality of education so that we get better National Senior Certificate results. And all of that, the DBE's responsibility is to make sure that they set clear targets, set clear plans, and that they account to the public through Parliament and in other ways.
Let's speak about the ECD issue then, Prof. 2 years compulsory before a child can move on to grade 1. Is it something that should have been done a long time ago? And how does it help, especially to prepare the young ones for the start of big school?
There's a lot of confusion in this area at the moment, and I made sure to double check the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, which is changing the age of compulsory education from compulsory from the age of 7 in grade 1 to introducing 1 year of compulsory education before grade 1, which is grade R. So it's 1 year of compulsory before that's been added on, so that children are able to be in schools from the age of 6. And that is an important initiative. Why I would say it's important is because grade R is already in place across many schools in the country. Why I think it's wise to not immediately move to 2 years of compulsory pre-grade 1 education is firstly because we must not run ahead of our capacity to deliver. That's critical. If we don't have the classrooms, if we don't have the teachers, if we don't have the support, it's a mistake to rush to early implementation of 2 years of grade R. The second issue is, where is it most appropriate for learners before the age of 6 to be in an education context? And there's a lot of people in the ECD space who would argue that community-based centers may be more appropriate than more formal setting of schools.
So there's also now, we're hearing a proper plan, and I know it's been in the pipeline for a while now, about giving pupils something at the end of grade 9 that can then prepare them for a post-school world, because we know it's reflected in the dropout rate, etc. Is there from the quality of education now? Are they skilled enough to survive? Yes, even though they're not going to go into a university program, but are we giving them enough to be able to eke out some form of living, a good quality of life?
Metcalfe, I love that question because I think that we need to have a national conversation about what the grade 9 certification point means. It does not mean that children, learners, young adolescents should leave learning at that stage. It's a significant opportunity for them to look at alternatives rather than leave school. So the alternatives would be to carry on with the academic preparation for the National Senior Certificate, or in my view, to move to TVET college for a more vocational training. I think that as a country we need to be investing in young people and make sure that all of them proceed to the end of grade 12 or the grade 12 equivalent in the TVET colleges. Mm-hmm. That introduction of the grade 9, I'm a strong proponent of introducing that certification point. And why is because we will have an objective measure of how learners are performing at the end of grade 9, and it will introduce a quality imperative into the system for young learners in grade 8 and 9, which is at the moment, in my view, a neglected 2 years in the education system.
And as you were saying, grade 9 is not a formal exit point, and the Basic Education Department has also made it clear in these proposed changes that they're not saying children should leave school at grade 9. But I want to go back to the 2 years prior, which you say are somewhat neglected. In what way have they been neglected, and what can we do to make sure that an equivalent amount of work happens there to better equip these teenagers?
Well, firstly, what we have is a very competitive interprovincial NSC-focused system where so much of the energy of so many officials goes into improving the grade 12 results because there's such a public focus on the grade 12 results. Imagine if there was a public focus on the grade 9 results and the same level of energy going into supporting grade 8 and 9. The second reason for me is that adolescence is a challenging time for learners and their families. Grade 8 and particularly grade 9, most educators will tell you, is a time in an adolescent's life where they need special support. Now, in terms of the way that we crafted our education system all the way back in 1994, there was always the notion that the general education and training from grade 1 to grade 9 would be the compulsory, and that is still the case. And what's happened is that the way that we conceptualize support for teachers takes place at the subject advisory level between grade 1 and grade 9. And that means that subject advisors, of whom we do not have enough in many provinces, have to go to primary schools to support teachers in grade 1 to 7 and also to secondary schools to support the grade 8 and 9. And in many provinces, there's not the capacity to support the grade 8 and 9, so the teachers in grade 8 and 9 in secondary schools are not getting sufficient support. Generally, I believe we don't support our teachers enough, but grade 8 and 9 is particularly precarious because we haven't conceptualized our system as primary schools and secondary schools in the way that we support. We conceptualize it as general education and training, the GET. I hope that's clear because it may be complicated for a non-education person.
Professor Mary Metcalfe, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time this Sunday.